Good morning, everybody. Welcome to an amazing episode of Sales Chatter. Jeff and we're gonna crush it today. Jeff, good morning, brother. How you doing?
Good, man. I am good. Let's just do this, man. My favorite subject. I love it. Let's go.
Let's get to it.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
Love it. I love it, man. It's trying different things, brand new things,
I
man.
love it, man. That's
Yeah.
it. Moving,
Yeah,
moving the peanut forward in the right direction.
right direction. We're talking about collaboration today. It's oftentimes, Jeff, that we're always hearing about it. Even us, when we talk on the show, we say, "Hey, you got to collaborate. You got to collaborate. You got to work with your team." And today, we're not focusing on the shipping customer. From there, we're talking about your teamwork, inward, the people you bring around you, your inner circle, and things like that. And one thing I do want to talk about, Jeff, is that how, why, what, and how is it beneficial for you? Because we're often, like we said, we want to kind of take this and just, like you said, move the peanut forward. So,
Oh yeah.
Jeff, collaboration, right? You're a big person on collaboration. There's so many moving parts in our industry. For yourself, what does collaboration look like?
It's a group effort that has a common goal and objective that has been created not by you but by all, by bringing in your subordinates into the inner circle. I found this out a long time ago, Ryan, that one of my faults a long time ago is I thought that I knew everything, right? And I wanted to do things the way I wanted to. And then I started bringing in some of my people into the inner circle, and they knew a lot more than I ever did because they're in the trenches. They're doing the hard work day in and day out. And some of the things that I never thought of.
No, we never thought of Jeff internet cutting off. So as we're waiting for him to kind of come back on here as he's freezing, you're on a roll, my man. Continue, my brother.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I love my internet. So bringing them in is a huge benefit because they feel that they're adding something, that they're wanted, that what they have to say is being attended to, that they're just not a person in a seat doing their job from 9 to 5. You're interacting with them and you're helping them to move forward, as well as you as a manager. It's very beneficial, extremely beneficial. Whoever's not doing that, do it. There's golden nuggets in all of that, all of it.
Yeah, and I think like what collaboration looks like for me is, a group of people together. And I don't like to say like necessarily like-minded. There has to be like the same goal attend, but like us, we see that divide sometimes between sales and operations, right? And it's like, okay, sales, we're here, we're commission role, we're trying to heat, but it's bringing people in to understand what their dreams are, find out
Yes.
about them as a person, right? Because
Yes.
if you're, let's say, an operator they've got a salary, they get the same paycheck every 2 weeks, and then they get their commission checks whenever, right? But it's hard for me to sell a dream to them when they're going to be making the same thing over and over again, right? And it's going to be
Correct.
able. So one kind of thing that I've always kind of done is every time I kind of go into a new company, I find out who I'm going to be working with, and
Yep.
sometimes they have those tripods, right? Like you got like those kind of, you got your CSR, you got your operations person, and then honestly just take them out for lunch and just like figure out what their goals are, find out about their family. I think
Yep.
your relationships with your carriers and your own team is extremely beneficial because you can't service the customer without them, right? Um,
Right.
as we're kind of talking, like I don't want to veer off into carriers, but when it comes to working with your team and the people around you specifically,
Yep.
I know you've mentioned the oak table quite a bit, and that comes from the
Yes.
customer.
Yep.
But when you have somebody who brings in a different perspective, what does that look like to you, Jeff? And how do you feel about that? Taking
I love it. The way that I've managed for many, many years, and I thank all my past bosses that mentored and coached me and developed me to who I am today. I always had an open door policy. Now, if I was in a project or anything, I never had my door closed. Never, ever, ever. I always had it open. And if I was in in the mix of doing a project and one of my subordinates associates walked through that door, I dropped everything that I was doing because at that time my subordinate associate was more important than myself and what I was doing. There's a reason that they walked through that door. You have to be a great listener. and listen really hard. Don't shove them away. Listen, because that's how you develop your team. They come in with an issue, a problem. The way that I developed my folks was that I wouldn't give them the answer directly to solve their problem, but I would give them little bits and pieces so that they could dig into it, get that knowledge to increase their career as following, know where to look, why am I doing this, and then develop them themselves. It's like if you create an Excel and you go fill in the cells, that's all they do. But if you told them a goal and objective to meet, they created that Excel and they filled it out themselves. Now they feel like, oh boy, look what I've developed, look what I'm doing. And now they get more involved in their work. So that's the way that I've always done it. And it's worked out really, really good. A lot of the folks that used to work for me, I said this before, we had, when I was at Snyder, we had a program called MAP, Management Assessment Program. And what that means is that you pick out selected people within your group who you feel that are ready to go to that next level, and you develop them to get into that management role. And that's the way that I did it, by, tell them the goal, the objectives, here's where we need to be, figure it out, and of course they'd be coming back and forth and asking more questions, and that's how you develop folks. So yes, by all means, manage with an open door policy. You will get rewarded beyond your own beliefs.
I like that you said that because every place I've been to, there has always been that open door, being able to, hey, can I just bounce this idea off you really quick? And I've been lucky that any manager just give that knock and like they'll drop what they're doing, and just like as you did when you were at your previous place, be there for the person. And I think when nobody wants to work in a place where there's like high turnover. Imagine
Yeah.
having to repeat like the same customer and going, and that's why SOPs are important. But you got to explain, like, you breaking down like customer, how the rules, and not necessarily the rules, but what the SOP looks like. And I know you do like a pretty extensive SOP. When somebody's coming on completely brand new, whether it be someone's going on mat leave or they're taking a personal leave or something like that, what does that look like to you, Jeff, in terms of getting them up to speed with how you do business?
Yeah, that's a great question. First and foremost, it's about cross training. I believe in that wholeheartedly. When I was with Snyder, I'll go back to Snyder again,
Yeah.
and the Ford Motor Company. What I did was I created the work instructions and the process improvement plans for each individual that came work for me, whether they were working in inbound or outbound or claims, whatever it may be. I had a process that was in place. And then I made sure that each one of my associates worked in each other's roles. And then we created the best practices. We wrote the work instructions, and then every traffic office that was out there around the country, which were 18 of them, they were exact mirror image of my office. And this way, when an associate was requested to go to Washington, Twin Cities, Charlotte, Houston, wherever it might be, they got into their seat and it was like they were working right in New Jersey. Everything was the process. It's like ISO. You do what you say what you do, you document it, and then those processes are mirrored. And that's how you get, the best practices to move things forward quickly. And that's the way that I did it in short.
And I like that a lot because you're able, like, cross train is so important. So it's consistency. You
It
have
is.
like your SOP there, and like everybody kind of gets trained the same. And I think that's so important rather than just kind of going off the cuff. Like, you don't want to get a CSR calling you and be like, hey, I thought the shipper was 8 to 4 or something like that, or different, or 7 to 3 or something like that, and it was completely off, right? Appointment based or things like
Sharing
that.
information,
Yeah,
definitely
sure.
sharing information. But I also have to add is that in any process improvement, you create a work instruction and then you have a deadline to revisit that work instruction. And it could be work instruction 001. You have a time stamp on it saying we're going to revisit this in 3 weeks to see whatever solution that we put in place, or whatever we might have entered. And then we write an addendum to the original work instruction process, which shows an improvement that we took an additional step, that one of the subordinates associates came to us with a great idea. And then I would implement that and put that as addendum A to whatever step, that might be 1, 2, 3, A-1 or whatever we implemented it. And then we keep on doing that. And it's the rolling process and movement plan on an annual basis, where you can see the adjustments that you made, the savings that you've made, and this goes for clients as well, prospects, clients, they're all in the same thing. What are you saying? How are you saying it? What was the takeaway from your conversations? What can you do better? What did you discuss? And you just keep on rolling. It's a rolling improvement on every time you make that call or adjustment to anything that you do in the industry. So in that role, whatever it might be.
And you always kind of mention, hey, we're going to come together, and that's what I think really what
Yes.
collaboration for me at least looks like, because I'm able, whenever I kind of like collaborate with my team, and I do it daily. I think you should have this conversation with your team daily. Hey, what are you guys seeing on the market? What are you guys seeing with other
Yes.
customers? Is there any kind of feedback that you can kind of share? Because these are the people who are going to be managing the account. They're the people who are going to make it break it for you, right? And it's really important to have that, and I feel like it becomes efficient when you're working within a team to be able
Definitely.
to listen to other people's ideas and take it in. Like nobody wants to feel bad for giving an idea or feel stupid, right? That's
No,
why we always kind of hear
there
the
are no
question.
stupid questions.
Exactly, like ask
There are
everything. and
none. And the
and what
other key thing too, Ryan, is that you want to develop the people to take your seat. You
Yes.
want to
Yeah.
develop them in such a manner that when you move up or you go to another role, whatever, that individual, again, not everybody can fit into that role, but you'll know from the
Mhm.
conversations that you have who is the best selected candidate to jump into your seat when you get moved up, because you want that, again, continuance of what you've created, what they've brought to the table, in order to push that peanut, as I say, forward to get the best results and the most savings.
And I love that, because what you're trying to do is that you're trying to always encourage that person, and that's the one of the
Yeah.
questions I ask every time I kind of take somebody out for lunch, especially like I still talk with my team for out for lunch, and just to figure out, hey, what do you guys want to do? Like what's your, because nobody wants to be in their role forever. Like I remember my boss, my first job, he always kind of said, hey, if you're making the same kind of money or you're in the same kind of role every year, then you got to really reevaluate yourself and understand that, hey, you're not moving anywhere. And complacency is something maybe we'll talk about another time, but
Yeah.
you'll have those people, and then you got to
You do.
understand, okay, let me work to their kind of level. And Jeff, when it comes to we talked about high retention rates, so people don't really leave, and morale. I remember you gave a story, I think it was either Snyder or some of the place, where you had somebody who I think she came into your office, and then you guys had
Yes.
that conversation. Can you run through that again for anyone who hasn't heard
Yeah,
that
it
story?
was completely. It was really tough because I worked with UAW. Really, really tough environment. All right, a lot of people out there. They work in the industry, but there's some industries within the logistics that are just completely complex. And I'm glad that I had that experience in that. And so we had certain things that we had to oblige by, and there was no alternatives to anything. It was just the way that we had to work. I had an associate who was coming in late all the time, and she was one of my best employees. I know it sounds odd, but she had some personal issues. So it's not all about business. It's about, like you said, Ryan, find out about their family, what they like, what they dislike. You learn so much from your associates from that, from asking those questions or learning. And it just so happens that it just kept on getting worse and worse and worse. And then, make a long story short, I had to go to arbitration to get rid of her and pay her a tremendous amount of money to leave, because we were losing money. And it came down to it is that her husband didn't want her to work anymore.
Mm.
She loved what she did, and it got to really tremendous bickering. Her mindset was not into it. I mean, I just saw those changes. That's why you have to be on top of your employees constantly all the time and always have your ears open. And it was really tough. It was a sad moment. I even get kind of really sad talking about it, because This was a woman that had so much to give, and she didn't have that ability to do that, and she could have gone like it was a shame. It was just it was a family matter, and it's one of the hardest things that you do. You walk out of those meetings and you just feel like crap. You really feel like crap because you could have helped that individual, and you know, yeah, tough moment, real tough.
And as you're kind of mentioning that story, I know for me, when I kind of worked in the corporate role, anytime you get called to your boss's office, you always like your mind starts playing wonders. Hey, am I getting fired? Is something bad happening? And things like that. And I think we kind of like need to take away that stigma, because one of my best managers, they always gave like feedback. They always kind of were like transparent, not necessarily when things were going right or things were going wrong, just in general. It's like you don't have to basically have. Meetings every single day, but just be intentional with it and let people know that they're valued. And Jeff, when it comes down to teamwork, I always think of basketball, right? Because there's no I, and everybody talks about like Michael Jordan being one of the best players. And one of the teams that they played was Utah Jazz with Karl Malone and John Stockton. And those two were like the pick and roll king. And
Yeah.
that's going to be my segue into the lane of the day. So today's lane of the day is actually going to be a van from Salt Lake City, Utah to Cincinnati, Ohio. The line haul RPM is looking at $2.30 a mile. With fuel, we're looking at $2.88 a mile. The contracted rate, including fuel, is $2.96 a mile. Year over year, line haul spot haul, sorry, year to year spot line haul RPM change has been minus 63 cents. So that lane is definitely climbing up there. The comments are the recent rate increase on Salt Lake City has encountered several uh, winter storms in recent weeks, and capacity is tight. The current rate is 72 cents higher from the November average. So that is the DAT lane of the day. I had to make that segue, Jeff, for Salt
I
Lake
know.
City. It's and it's actually funny they kind of mentioned that, because Lisa and Chad, they're actually in Utah right now.
All right.
They were, yeah, they sent us some pictures that they're in Utah. So I didn't just
Nice.
think of that. Like as we are kind of thinking, I was like, oh shoot, they sent some pictures that they're in Utah enjoying the snow, because
There you go.
they're from Cali. So you
There you
know,
go.
it's like we mentioned that kind of story about collaboration with teamwork and things. You're talking about when things go well. What was the time for you, Jeff, that a person on your team brought up something that you didn't think about?
Oh, it wasn't wrong. That's for sure. Um, it was actually, like I said before, we added it to our processes, and he felt really wanted. And then the next thing you know, he was bringing more and more ideas to the table. Because you you gave them the opportunity to speak.
Hmm.
Some bosses out there, unfortunately, think that they can do everything themselves. They don't know how to delegate or the roles or the projects, and that's very detrimental to a really good fine-tuned operation, especially in a traffic office. It's it's the wrong thing to do. And like I said before, you'd be amazed when you start bringing these people in, um, and you bring them into the inner circle. I brought them into board meetings. I brought them into the oak table. I had them sit down, and it just helped them to, blow that role and career out of proportions. Things where they thought they were just going to be like pigeonholed in one area, they grew immensely, and they started taking on all these other things because they felt wanted.
Yes.
That's everybody that works for somebody wants to feel wanted. They want to be rewarded by having their ideas and what they are bringing to the table actually seen and heard. And once that happens, it's just amazing. It really is. It's absolutely amazing.
And it doesn't cost you anything to do that, to bring
It
somebody
does
like,
not.
hey,
It doesn't
like
cost.
Like, I'll always remember my fond memories is, like, the first time my boss brought me into a meeting, he didn't have to, and, it's something that I just never expected, and, just to
That's
have
it.
stories like that and, like, it's something simple, we're getting close to Christmas time, everyone's kinda getting their bonuses and Christmas gifts and things like that, and to let people know that they're wanted and they're appreciated, I feel like that's the number one reason why people leave companies. They don't fire companies, they fire their bosses, right? And they go somewhere else, and, creative collaboration for me is extremely important. Being able to get in a room or get on a Zoom because we're all remote now. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this after, Jeff. But being able to have like discussions like, hey, what do you guys think? Like, I'm kind
Yeah,
of doing this. Can you double check this for me? And it comes from a
always.
place of success. But Jeff, I want to get your opinion. How has remote either benefited or it's made it a negative for collaboration within your team or made it difficult?
It's not. I talked about this before when I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning of starting my business and just doing the wrong steps. Because what I'm going to say, I'm not a sales guy, right? I just smile all the time because I just find it so funny now. But I really wasn't, and so I was pulling the triggers in all the wrong areas, and it was really detrimental to what my goals and objectives were. There was no way I was going to reach it. And then I just started being a little bit more creative. And then I ran into my partner uh 10, 11 months ago, and we hit it off. We're congruent. We talk every single day. There's not a day that goes by, even on the weekends, except Sundays, that we don't communicate.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have our business meeting at the end of the year as a recap to go over our goals and objectives, where he needs to be, where I need to be, even though I own my own business and I have people working for me. I'm going to ultimately be making those decisions, but it's going to be based on others and their thoughts and what they're seeing. I see a lot. I've got data. I've got everything that I need to see. And of course, that will be a huge part of it. But we're always reinventing ourselves and bringing more value to the table, especially now, Ryan. And I'm not preaching to the choir out there. Look, we're in the precipice of a recession, and it's going to come. All indicators are there. We're going to have a tough first quarter of 2023, so we really have to be, in that position, in the engagement position, to say the right things at the right time in order to keep that pipeline filled. Very, very tough, and also keep the clients that you already have. You don't want to lose them at this juncture for sure. So there's so many things that we need to talk about, and that's pretty much what we do. I'm not making the decisions myself. That's for sure.
That's awesome to think about. And what I've kind of realized too, Jeff, is even in my business, when we kind of bring on a customer, I always bring my ops team, I bring my customer service
Yes.
team because they need to hear that as well. And you're gonna realize this too with with your accounts. Like your team is gonna be dealing with them day to day more than you do. Right, you're going to be doing that kind of like follow up check, making sure everything's kind of good. Actually, I want you to kind of share what we were kind of talking about off air about what you personally do to kind of get feedback from your customers and basically take that to your team.
Oh, well, I have a postcard that I send out to my customers that basically has a few questions on it. It's not always a phone call or an email. You can do other things in order to spark something. You want everything you do it for an action. You
Yes.
want a response, you want an action. So when you think you're doing really, really well with your customers or even prospects, if you've made several calls to them and you're not getting through, it's okay to send them like a postcard with questions on it or something like that, because you're showing other ways, other options of engagement, not not what everybody else is doing. But you can be as blunt as saying, uh, why wouldn't you want to work with me? I know it sounds ironic, but uh, if you were going to engage in another service provider, why would you? I mean, ask questions that need a response. Now some might just might take it and just go out there. You'll never hear about it, but it's those few. You can do mass mailing on that, and you can look at your past clients that you've had engagement with, that move to another service provider, which is okay. That happens all the time. Go back to them. Don't wait for QBRs. Those quarter business reviews. Ask in between. Hey,
Yes.
how am I doing? What can I do better? Where am I slacking? What am I really good at?
Yep. And I
Create
think
that
also,
Excel file or that CRM and put that information in it and follow up, because it's going to fine tune that channel that you need to be, engaged in. The others you can push off, but now you're talking about time, efficiency, and productivity. It's going to narrow that lane down to where you need to focus on, because those are the high potentials that will fulfill your pipeline. The others, you're going to have some difficulty. So, you may call them low lying fruit or whatever, but go down that path, and expose that. Do whatever you possibly can to bring them back in.
and I like that you said that because, we are asking those questions. And I think it's important that you ask your team that as well. They'll be able to say, hey, maybe you're kind of slacking in one area, or you're not really bringing the information that we need to be successful. Right. And I think
Right.
when all three, it's like a triangle, right? You got your
It is.
team, yourself, and then you got the customer. And when everything's kind of going, was just flowing properly, you're say hello to the money, right? Because everything is going well. But you look at those pods, right? Like of customers, and I think that's extremely important. You have those conversations with your team and with your customer to know what you're doing well. Because one thing I've kind of seen on like LinkedIn and things like that, a lot of like sales gurus and things like that, they tell you they have their tips, but we're a relationship based industry. I don't care what anybody says. Like
No,
nobody does
exactly.
one shipment and then that's it. It takes time to onboard somebody. It takes time to do the credit app. It takes time to get set up. It does all those things, right? So nobody goes to set up a customer just to do one, or like I said, one or two shipments. You're there, you're trying to basically make an impact and save them time, awareness, and things like that. So relationship based, you start with yourself inward and you go outward.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about collaboration. And I say it all the time. I don't sell freight. I don't want to sell freight. That's not the most important thing to me. I'm an operations guy. I'm a logistics guy. I have that experience. I'll expose inefficiencies and non-productive things that you are doing in order for me to get my foot into the door. I go about it in a whole different way. There's just the high, I would say over 90%, they're just fine tuning. I got to move freight. I got to move freight. I got to move freight. I got to hit my
Tunnel
numbers.
vision.
I got to
Yeah.
get this done. I got to get that, and you're not going to get there, because there's going to be a point where you're going to sound desperate, man. You're going to
Yeah.
sound desperate, and you don't, you want to be carefree. You have your goal and objectives, but you're like, okay, so I didn't get that, and it doesn't go to your mind and F you up. It's just like, okay, move on, man. It's a huge industry, man. Huge.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
huge,
if you lose 1,000, there's a billion other opportunities. Who cares? Who
Yeah.
cares?
And you know what? I like how you said that because like you can go and get some more, and like even your like I said, your team is going to be the biggest seller for you, whether it be to customers or to prospects, right? And even when it comes to carriers too, that's why I asked you a couple days ago, have you ever sent has a carrier actually sold for you? Saying, hey, there's this shipping warehouse. I go to another customer. I obviously can't do it. Let me give you that referral base, and I think you want to make
Yes.
everything warm in terms of that. So, Jeff, I'm going to ask you one question before we kind of wrap up here.
Oh,
Top three traits of somebody who has great collaboration. What does that look like? So give me three traits of that.
oh boy. The top three, and I've said it all the time, is that it has to be a complete circle: service provider, shipper, carrier. It could be sales and operations, guys on the floor that are picking orders, whatever it might be. I'm looking at the big picture here. They're all, you got to all be in it to win it. And the only way that you do is that, if you're ramping up a new product line, if you're bringing in a new carrier, if you have a new shipper, you have to bring all the key stakeholders in play. and introduce them to that individual or process, whatever it might be, because at some point, each one of those people or departments are going to be touching that area. So you need to make sure that everybody is ramped up and on the same page, especially with a new product line launch, packaging, whatever it might be, inform the shipper, inform the carrier, I mean, you could go even deeper, what's the average claim cost per pound by product, whatever it might mean. I mean, it's just because that all is relative to the engagement of rolling something out and the bottom line figures and what is it going to cost you, what is it going to cost your customers, what is it going to cost you as an operation. So, I mean, I know that's more than three, but it really, I mean, I can't narrow it down to three because there's just so many different moving parts in logistics that I have 100 more that I could bring in. We don't have
We'll save that
time.
for another show.
Right. We don't have time for it, but you have to do that. You have to see it before it happens. That's the whole thing. Envision that happening and then figure out, okay, in order to make that work, what do I have to do? As a leader, as a business owner, how am I going to make this efficient and more productive where it's going to be a cost saving process? That's the whole thing. It could be in your brokerage operation. It could be in your traffic department, your logistics operations, your supply chain operations. I mean, so many freaking different parts, think about it. Don't react like that. Take the process, but if you have that experience, you can pull all those levers, make things happen really, really quickly, have that timeline, and then reach all that kind of stuff. So
awesome. There we go. So yeah, three got a
a
lot more.
lot.
But so we're gonna close up today. I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. I want to thank you if you're catching us on live or catching us on replay. Check us out again at 12 and 3 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We're looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow for the favorite day of the week, which is Data Day with Dean Crook. It's going to be a banger as we're kind of wrapping up this year. We got, 2 more episodes with Dean left until a brand new year. So with that being said, I want to say have an amazing day, Jeff. You're
Thanks,
killing
brother.
it, brother. We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Have